Okay, Chris Peaks back here with Brandon Mosley for our BCS State of Alabama podcast. And we got House District 50 candidate Bryan Newell, who is facing Brian Morris now for the GOP nomination.
Bill
Brian, how's it going, man?
Morris. Bill Morris.
Oh, what I say?
Brian Morris.
Oh, my
There's
bad.
one
Bill
Brian in the
Morris.
race, and he's Newell.
Okay. So, Brian,
It's
how's the campaign
bees,
going,
but
man?
not.
I think it's going pretty good. I've been staying busy, hitting every watermelon festival and every rodeo that's out there. So, shows and going out there and doing some door knocking already.
Brian, your volume's getting low.
How about right now? Is that
Pretty
better?
good. Working good.
All right. But yeah, like I was saying, I've been going out to the rodeos, watermelon festivals, doing door knocking. So it's I'm staying active. That's for sure.
Did you cut out, Christopher?
No, I thought I was waiting. I was letting you ask the next question.
Oh, okay. Um, Brian, for those that don't know, could you tell something about yourself? We have a statewide
Well,
audience.
yeah, for those that doesn't know me, I'm a retired Army combat veteran. I served my country for over 22 years. I deployed multiple times to Iraq and Afghanistan, and I came back when I retired in 2018. I moved to Moody, Alabama, and that's where I've remained. Uh, I've decided that when I in 2024 I couldn't hold off anymore. I saw what where our country was going in the wrong direction, so I ran against Mike Rogers. So even though I lost the primary to Mike Rogers, five of the six things that I ran on was accomplished through executive action. So I'm the most accomplished politician that ever got elected. So you can imagine what would happen if I got elected. I'd definitely be able to make some things happen. So that's what I'm trying to do for here in Alabama. Since those five things were addressed through executive action, I was like, my job was done. So now I could focus directly on Alabama. I'm also I was also raised in the rural Alabama. Raised by basically a farmer. When times got tough and union strikes led to layoffs, we thank God that my dad was a farmer. So raised pigs and cows, and eventually they made it to our dinner plate. So that was how I was raised. Hard life, but then went off into the military and pretty much never looked back. So now I'm running for the Alabama State House because I believe that we, the people of Alabama, especially in the 50th district, needs real representation. I want a government of patriotic citizens, not royalty or entitled bureaucrats acting as if getting elected to the state house is a seat at the country club and where nothing gets done. These individuals can't visualize a greater Alabama because their life is already greater, more abundant than most of the hardworking blue collar Alabamians that are out there now. So we need a representative of the people, for the people, by the people. That's one of the reasons that I'm running.
Brian, here recently we have found out that the American Conservative Fund, who is backed by DraftKings, has put over $100,000 into your race. Do you have a comment on that?
Well, they obviously they put it against me. I don't know for what reason. I don't think Bill knows for what reason either. But obviously they're probably if I had to speculate, and that's all it's going to be is a speculation. I would say is somebody that they want to have somebody in there that they can control, and obviously that's not me.
For folks that have never heard of the American Conservative Fund, which was me a week ago, um, Bill and Brian were going at it. They're both at the same places. I can't drive down 411 without seeing both Bill and Bryan's signs here in District 50. On Friday, those of us who live in District 50 and are, registered well, not, you can't register Republican, but we're registered voters who have voted in the Republican primary in the past, got one of these pro Bill Morris flyers. On Saturday, we got another one. Interesting enough, they were not paid for by Bill Morris. They're paid for by the American Conservative Fund. Talked with Bill on Monday. He told me he didn't know who they were and asked me to find out. So I made some calls, and it turns out they are a super PAC created by DraftKings. Talked with some of the gambling people that I know, they're pro gambling, represent gambling interest. And they said that, DraftKings, apparently, of course, a lot of people do DraftKings, and other stuff on their phone, which technically right now is illegal. And if you weren't paying attention, the legislature just ended. And the general fund had a slight, like $12 million increase, but factoring inflation went from 3.7 billion to 3.7 billion. That's flat. And all of the state's costs, whether it's fuel or insurance on the employees, everything else, pretty much when it flat means all those agencies took a cut because we didn't cover the cost of inflation. Whether it's Bryan or Bill gets elected in next year, there's going to be some hard conversations about the general fund unless our finances improve substantially. Um, Bryan, are you anti-gambling?
No, not officially, because I've been trying to figure out how we're going to pay for the infrastructure to bring in something that is more stable. Because right now, we're looking for long term progress here in Alabama, and that's bringing in industry. We can't seem to bring in any industry because we don't have the infrastructure to support it right now in a lot of these areas, especially here in St. Clair County. And I would like to see some more industry coming here to St. Clair County, but until we get these roads fixed and make sure that we have the sewage and water infrastructure to be able to support it, nobody's coming in here. And that's the long-term investments that we need. If gambling, which for example, we'll use Mississippi, for example, they bring in $385 million just from the lottery alone. And, and they're half the population of Alabama. So you can imagine why they have lobbyists that are coming from Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee pushing against the lottery bill, is because that would take away money from those states that surround us. And guess what? None of those states are having a problem bringing in any kind of industry right now, but we could use a lot of that lottery money for our infrastructure and education. You could divvy it out in a little percentages. And back in 2021, everybody was on board with it because everybody supported that bill, but they could not figure out how to spend the revenue. So they went out of session, and then they came back in, and you would think they would bring that same bill back up. But no, they want to reinvent the wheel, and then it's even worse than the first one. So, it's a lot of these representatives that we had, it seems like they want to drag their feet for some ungodly reason. They'd want to do that, but we're not, we the people are not having that choice in the matter at all. So, am I totally supportive of it? No, but there's got to be restrictions on it too, because in lots of ways, a lot of people will support the lottery, but they don't want a little tunica running around out here and say, wherever, so some of those things, there's got to have a lot of conversation about how we would allow if it came to the gambling aspects of it, what we would support. Some of the things are like Florida, for example. There's only I think whatever they have right there on the reservations of the Seminole lands, and then you've got some of those like in Mississippi where they're spread out, But it's one of those things we'd have to have a conversation about. But if there was a way of figuring it out to where we could get that infrastructure fixed. But the way you're talking about it, I don't think we have the finances to be able to support the infrastructure at the same time of dealing with the problems that we have already, without having a lottery bill to pay for it, or
Hey,
the
Brian,
revenue from the lottery to pay for it.
now when you said that you thought that maybe DraftKings would be that Morse would be somebody they could control, do you mean control as far as get a bill passed that they wanted or block a bill they did not like? Or could you elaborate on that?
No, I'm just like I said, that was just my speculations and my opinion. That doesn't hold water. That was just my first looks at it, and I was like, well, I don't understand why they pick one person over the other, especially in here in our district either. We haven't had a choice in the last 20 years for a representative. These representatives for the past 20 years have run unopposed, and that's nothing against our past representatives at all. I'm just saying they've run unopposed, so I don't know why they would jump into this one as it is. Have no idea.
Um, I have made some calls and checked around, and this is not the only race in Alabama where the American Conservative Fund has got involved. I've been told they've also donated, 1819's reporting, to James Lomax. Talked to my people down in Baldwin County, and they're also supporting Francis Holt Jones, Senator Chris Elliott, and Senator Greg Albritton. Um, I mean, some of these counties don't even have reporter newspapers anymore. So I don't know somebody in some of these districts to call to find out what's going on down there. But you can tell if it's paid for by the, committee to elect Bryan Newell, it'll have it, if you get a flyer, it'll be on the mailer saying who's this paid for. It's paid for by Bryan Newell or commit the Friends of Bryan Newell, whatever. These. I don't know if y'all can read that, but this says paid for. Let's see here, by American Conservatives funds, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. And again, if they were coordinating with Bill or any of these other candidates, it would actually be an ethics violation under the way the law is written about super PACs. So, Brandon
Also,
has,
also with those commercials, they would be written as they'd also have, I'm so and so, and I support this message.
yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like the Bill Morris YouTube commercials they made. It tells us how wonderful Bill Morris is, and has a picture of him and why we need to vote for him. But you never actually see Bill Morris. I paid for this, deal, and I approve this message because he did it. Legally can't. Um, you know, this. I mean, again, I with just a little bit of checking, I found 6 races this is involved in. And, most of the Republicans aren't running, you know, um, opposed. So they're making a major play in the Republican primary, claiming they're conservatives. And whatever you think of gambling, this is an out-of-state company, and when a gambling bill is written, obviously they're going to come to the legislature and say, "Hey guys, we helped you out. this is what we want in the bill. I talked with another lobbyist for another gambling company, and he said that if his company doesn't want to be shut out of a potential gambling deal. We've had deals where the Forest Creek Indians have sought a monopoly. I think they were going to pay the state $1 billion a year and they would operate the entire state by themselves. That went nowhere. Um, but again, our problem has never been in the legislature whether it's gambling versus no gambling. What kills bills like the 2021 bill is who's going to be allowed to do it and who's going to be shut down by it. I mean, most of the casinos and illegal casinos in the state would have been shut down if the 2021 bill had passed as it came out of the House. So the forces that, didn't want their gambling hall shut down, they organized against it. Ultimately, after it came out of the compromise version, the Porch Creeks were opposed.
You're right. Well, also most of those your so-called other ones were all bought out by the Porch Creek Indians anyway by then.
Yeah, but there's
So
58 that I'm aware of operating in the state. Now, they pop up
okay.
and get shut down and pop up in Jefferson and Walker County all the time. So that
Hmm.
58 number is way low.
Okay.
I think
I'm
that
assuming-
bill would have shut us down to 8 facilities. Or different versions of it had as low as 6 facilities.
DraftKings, I'm assuming that they're mainly for sports betting.
Yes, you can bet.
Yes.
You can bet on college football games, NFL, motor car racing.
You're betting on the players.
Yeah, you can bet over, under. You can bet, they do drafts. Drafts is actually legal in Alabama.
Right.
But, I'm sure this has more to do with in states not named Alabama. DraftKings does actual bets. It originally began as, hey, in my free time, I can pretend to be my own general manager and I can have a fantasy league draft, which is allowed under, a bill that passed, I want to say about 7 years ago in Alabama. But now DraftKings and its main competitor,
FanDuel,
they realize that the kind of people that want to place money on how their favorite players perform this week, are the very people that sports gamble. So by creating that deal, when the Supreme Court decision came down allowing sports betting outside of Nevada, they were in position to seize the market for gambling. But Alabama's 1901 constitutional amendment prohibiting, games of chance kept them from expanding and, doing, I'm betting the Alabama game, the spread's 21 points and I'm taking the over.
Right.
Bryan, we just finished the session. There was $3.7 billion in the general fund budget, $10.5 billion in the education trust fund budget, and now the infrastructure that everybody likes to talk about, roads, is in its own special outside the budgets fund, paid for by
the gas tax.
Do we have a revenue issue? Do you see a problem with the budgets as they came out?
No, not officially. I actually haven't seen the budget right now of what we're spending our hard-earned money on right now. But I know that there's some of the things that we need to start paying attention to, and that's some of the fraud that's going on with our, like for example, our Medicare. I mean, our Medicare
Medicaid
with
is the
some of
state
our
portion
elder.
of Medicaid. Yeah.
Yeah,
Medicare is a
because
federal program.
like for example, for example, if my mom was going to get, they'll get a call, and they'll get her number for her her Medicare card or whatever, right? Medicaid, yeah, Medicaid. Sorry, and
Well,
so when they would get,
there's two programs, and sometimes, they're confusing. Medicare, when you turn 65 or 67 or whatever age you're going to
yeah,
turn Medicare eligible, you automatically get Part A, and then it pays like 80% of
that's what
your
I'm talking about. Is that
you're not, that's
that right
Medicare.
there?
That's
And
federal. And the legislature has like zero authority over that. The one that
right,
gets us the largest item, I think it's like a nearly a over $1 billion of the general fund budget is Medicaid, which takes care of poor seniors, where Medicare pays 80% of their health care costs.
right,
Medicaid comes in and picks up that other 20%. You or I, our insurance from our employer or us pays that 20%.
right.
Um, and
What
Medicaid delivers about pays for the delivery about half of the babies in Alabama, and probably
what I'm
about,
saying is,
yeah.
I'm saying there's
Well,
fraud in both of those. And what I'm talking about is, for example, you get a, for example, a hearing aid, for example, and they once they get that number, they'll bill it for that product, and then all of a sudden you never receive it, but they get the funding for it. That is what I'm
They send you
talking
some
about.
cheap deal that cost, $500, and they build Medicare, $3,500.
Yeah, well, most of the time, not receiving it at all,
Yeah.
and they're still getting it, and it's still billed out to pay for it, and it's not you that's paying for it. The government's, either the state or the federal government's paying for it, and they're not receiving the product at all. So it's
Well,
going through both the avenues of it.
yeah, Medicare doesn't affect the state budget any. It's a federal issue. But now Medicaid fraud, like, when your
Yes,
doctor gets your insurance numbers and the payer is Alabama Medicaid,
right,
let's say the I mean, the poor child, needs the insurance, they got the insurance, and they have legitimate things that need to be done, and that doctor bills Medicaid.
right.
That's how it's supposed to work. But once you have those numbers, who's to say that that child did not show up last week for a checkup?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
And
There's
they
a lot of
bill, and the
hidden
state,
fraud.
yeah, the nursing homes are bad for that. Again, the Fed is on the hook for about 65% of that, but 35% of that is paid for out of the state general fund. And like I said, that's the largest item. And, there's more the state could do out of the Attorney General's office to chase down, Medicaid fraud, which is
Yeah,
there's no
I would
telling
have
how
to,
big that is.
well, you've seen it throughout the other states also. And
Yeah,
we'd have to be naive to believe that Alabama is immune to that. We have it just as, we might have it just as bad, but it's not as blatant as the Quality Learning Center or anything like that. It's just a little bit more hidden, but it's there.
I
All we
did
got
it
to do
about
would
five
be
years
naive
ago.
to believe it's not.
About 5 years ago, I did a story on this. There was, Florida's Attorney General office has over 100 people in its division just pursuing Medicaid fraud. And that's a huge number of attorneys and investigators. and they generate 3 times the amount of money that it costs for them to have 100 investigators and attorneys. You know, whatever that costs, they make 3 times that. At that time, Alabama had 3 people in their Medicaid division for the entire state.
Mm.
Christopher?
We just had a new bill passed regarding the Public Service Commission. What was your opinion on that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
We just had a new bill regarding the Public Service Commission. I think where we are now electing members per congressional district, and now they have like an energy czar. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, I believe that those the public service should be elected official. You know, I never thought that they should be one of those that are appointed. We have enough appointed little positions running around as it is, and I think that should be an elected position. I really never paid that much attention to that until it came out with really this election is really when I paid the most attention to it. I never have really paid that much attention to that race at all until now, you know, and I realized that position holds a lot of work to it. That's for sure. You know, it's a lot more, a lot to it. And in considering the situations in which we find ourselves with some of the people that's been appointed, I wouldn't want to have that position appointed at all. You know, so, you know, allowing them to have an elected race for that, I think that's the best thing. They're getting it up on onto the you know, eyes of the voters themselves, and knowing what those positions hold and what kind of what kind of clout that they have. And I think that's probably been one of the best things about it, is it brought it all to the forefront what that position holds. And I think that's a good thing. So the voters are a little bit more informed of what that position holds. So, you know, you can actually have some people that are out there voting for the right thing, you know?
Bryan, North Alabama, you know, has
Yes.
landed, you know, Hadrian, which builds the submarines for the Navy. Boeing announced they're tripling production for their Seeker, you know, which is a major component of the Patriot missile system. GE Aerospace, they've expanded. Eli Lilly has gone again to North Alabama. Blue Origin, who builds the motors for the rockets, is Huntsville. You know,
Right.
we've had a lot of big economic development projects go in North Alabama. Like you mentioned,
Yes.
our area, we've been kind of waiting for like a big announcement. Do you think that because TVA's power rates are 40% lower than what Alabama Power is currently charging, is one reason by like big companies that use massive amounts of electricity are locating up there or in neighboring states instead of here in St. Clair County or, you know, any place in South or Central Alabama?
I think that might be a very big question to ask. I believe you're absolutely right. I think you're knocking on the right door. For some, you know, but I'm not for sure. That's where I was raised, was up in North Alabama, and TVA had probably when I was young, they had pretty much overall authority, because they even purchased part of my dad's property for one of the lakes that was being built, and they said, you buy it at our rate or we take it. You know, so my dad had to give them basically sell them that 3 acres of property, you know, at the tail end of our property. And so they had the authority back then. And but I wasn't aware that their rates were lower, but that would be a very good, you know, if I had to guess, that would probably be a very big question to ask right there. Is that the reason why? I mean, you've always had the Huntsville Space Center up there, so they've always had the rockets being built up there with the Redstone Arsenal. So you've always had that type of, I guess you could say, chemistry up there, and then all of a sudden you have some of the aircraft rebuilding companies that are up there. So they've stuck around with keeping aviation pretty much moving around up there. So it's kind of obvious that they want to, you kind of hang around with your own kind, but all that ingenuity and the Space Center being up there, that's probably part of the reason. And then the other one is it could be possibly because of the energy in the military.
Southern Company owns Alabama Power, Mississippi Power, Georgia Power, and Florida Power and Light. Of the four, Alabama Power charges the most per kilowatt hour.
That's sad to say.
38% more than Georgia.
Wow, that's crazy.
Bryan, you was mentioned a while ago infrastructure. Industry coming to St. Clair County or any place for that matter, and was talking about the surplus in our budget. Is there a way that we can start looking at reducing or eliminating the state income tax to be more competitive with other states to bring in this type of industry?
Yes, believe it or not, that was something that I was looking at. It basically like off of Mississippi's plan. They're reducing theirs down to, I think they reduced it down to 2% or something like that, and they're trying to get it down to zero. Basically, a trickling effect, to bring it to where they have zero on state income tax. And I believe that should be a route that we should take. But it also requires having a lottery to replace some of that revenue that's being spent. I believe that we could use some of that to start trickling down our state to where we have a zero income tax, just like Florida. Florida. Well, I think Georgia and Mississippi are on the same boat, but just like Tennessee and Florida, where they have 0% when it comes to income tax. But Tennessee, I think they've got a little bit of hidden taxes, little taxes on things that we don't even hardly even think of. And then, Florida, sometimes when it comes to Florida and Tennessee, of course, they have more in property taxes. Now, Tennessee's is not that bad, but it's more than ours. Mississippi is, I think, the closest, and they were twice our amount. When it comes to property taxes, we're down there real low. We're the lowest in the United States when it comes to property tax. So sometimes whenever you have something that is low and you're wanting to get something taken off, like for example the state income tax, well, they always want to replace it with something by raising property taxes. Well, if we have the lottery, we can go ahead and try to eliminate the state tax and not have that problem where you got to replace it with something.
Bryan, do you think a lottery or gambling, even if we've had casinos and sports betting, would replace about $9 billion in its, individual and corporate income taxes?
Well, not completely. You're talking about, let's just use Mississippi, for example. I think it's $385 million a year for the lottery alone, and about $2 billion from the Choctaw Indians. That's only half of it, maybe. And so there's going to be one of those things where that's where the industry starts coming in. If you can start bringing, you fix the infrastructure, you bring the industry, which is the long-term economic process that and policy that we need to have as industry coming in to the state. You're obviously going to be able to start bringing down those the cost when it comes, because you're going to have the revenue, you'll start being able to trickle that thing down. That's why Mississippi is doing it the way that they're doing it, because that's their primary concept is to bring in industry, and sometimes good infrastructure directs industry. I'm not saying it's the end all to save all, but it's a step process.
Brian, do you think now that we need to start looking, go ahead and eliminating the final 2% on our sales? I mean, on our grocery tax.
I think that's something to look at. That's for sure. To my, we're kind of like in the middle, but our taxes on that are pretty high compared to a lot of other states. But that's one of the things that we can do. I know they've looked into some bills of reducing costs when it comes to, and they talked about a few things when it came to like the grocery tax, getting rid of it and stuff like that. So to help out people when they're buying food and stuff like that. So that's one of those things that we definitely need to start bringing up. That's for sure.
Half the state of Alabama makes less than $40,000 a year. Are
Mm-hmm.
you concerned that if we bring gambling into the state, that they'll spend, inordinate amounts of their limited income on lottery tickets or betting on Alabama football games or NASCAR races or whatever, or playing bingo, that we will drive millions of Alabamians into poverty?
No, because we've had gambling here for 10 years. I mean, seriously, the things that we're talking about is, from my understanding, is just the drop in the bucket. Now the lottery, that's something else. You're talking about bringing in a lottery. Well, look at the other states. Have they been driven into poverty? Let's look at Florida, Tennessee, Georgia. Have they been driven into poverty? No, they're not any different than the rest of us, and we're not any different, maybe less revenue than a lot of the other states, that has had some economic success when it came to industry being moved in there, other than Huntsville and maybe Mobile. I mean, we've got some areas that have great revenue coming in. I think down there at Gulf Shores, they had market success this past year. Great success. But that's like I said, that's ours is spotty. Here in Central Alabama, we just don't have that. Let's just say that revenue stream, especially here in St. Clair County, that I would like to see for the state itself. And with that being said, if we can counter that, that would change a lot of the things that's going around. But like I said, we've had gambling here for 10 years, and you don't see us going into a crime spree or anything else that's any different than any of the other states.
Right. One thing, I think some people lose sight of. Are you concerned that when we take this money to buy lottery tickets, that's going to take away things that people would normally spend money on, and therefore that's going to decrease the amount of taxes that's going to go into the general fund?
Well, what I'm saying is, I believe it's more of this is my personal belief. I'm a born again Christian, but I also believe in the American way of people having the freedom to be able to make the choice. If you don't believe in it, don't participate in it. That is the way that I see it. We're not, if we bring in the lottery, we're not forcing people to have to go and buy a damn lottery ticket. If you believe in it, or if you want to participate in it, then so be it. That's our God-given constitutional, in our country, we have those constitutional rights to be able to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, whichever direction that takes you. Now, if you believe in it, great. If you don't believe in it, and you don't have to participate in it. But we're not marching around the casino, the 8 casinos that we have here at the Porch Creek Indian, saying, "Oh, gambling is bad, and we got to go and do the protests around that because it's not going to get anywhere." You don't see them at the gas station saying, "No, you shouldn't buy cigarettes because you're destroying God's temple." We don't see that happening either. So, why they're pushing against this one and expecting it to be the the curse of Alabama, I have no idea. We have 45 states that prove that it's not the worst thing in the world. It can help your state out quite a bit, and we have 45 other states to prove it,
Bryan, 34 of the 67 Alabama counties have lost population between 2020 and 2025, according to the census. The three
Yes.
fastest growing counties are, Limestone, Baldwin, and Madison. St. Clair County is in the top 7 for growth in the state. Are you concerned that if we do bring a bunch of big projects to the state, that St. Clair County will get overcrowded? To the county, St. Clair County will get overcrowded and we'll lose our, southern, rural quality of life here.
I don't think so. I can't imagine us losing our southern rural Alabama lifestyle, or how or mortality. I don't know. I couldn't imagine anything like that happening, but we're already experiencing massive growth as it is, and housing going up like crazy, and I can't imagine it getting worse with population unless we don't have the infrastructure to support it. That would be the only way that I could see that it wouldn't be a benefit. Now, we have areas in St. Clair County that is basically dying, and for example, look at. I'm just going to use this for example. Throw that out there. Look at Raglan High School. A problem because they don't have enough kids in the school they're looking at, if they don't come up with the money, they're going to close down, and they're talking about putting on a property tax. That would be some areas where some of those things that I was talking about before could benefit those areas without having to raise a property tax. Look at look at where I live, Moody. They raised the daggum property tax, to they so-called education, but a lot of it got spent on, let's just say, the athletic program.
Well, and I was here today at 10:30 at the ribbon cutting for the new high school. They paid for the $60 million bond issue that was based off of that, which is going to be paid with the revenue from that tax increase moving forward.
Right. And of course, there was supposed to be a liberal arts center building, and that got delayed because they wanted to make that into the locker room, and so the locker room got built, but that one got delayed. So,
actually, what they're doing, because I was on the site today, we've got that new high school. The old high school, which opened, I want to say, in 2002.
Right.
That high school is going to become the middle school, and the high school is moving into the new building.
Yes.
The old junior high, which was built, I want to say, in 1977 as the original high school, is in the process of being renovated. It will become that performing arts center. They showed me.
I guess there was. Yeah, that was last thing. There was two. I think there was two of them that were two ideas that were planned, and obviously I heard you now reminded me that was the secondary option that they had, and they went with it.
Yeah,
instead
there's
of building a new
actually,
one, renovating the older.
yeah, there's work being done on that building now, which obviously will accelerate, in the end of May when they kick all the students out, they go home for summer break. And, the high school and, the high school kids moved to the new building, and the junior high kids moved to the old high school. That
Right,
1977 building will, they'll be able to finish the process of converting that into a performing arts center.
right.
I've been out there on the campaign trail. What other issues do you feel that it's important to your constituents as we go down the final weeks of this election?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of the things is a lot of people they don't want to see their property taxes raised, and I don't want to see it raised either. Some of the other things is bringing in. I mean, we've been talking about what some of the major things are. Bringing in industry. There's a lot of people that where I live. They all travel down to Talladega, work at the Honda factory, or they work in Hoover, like for example, like myself, or they work in Birmingham and they commute all the time. So as the gas prices increase, that's a more strain on the individuals themselves. But at the same time, they like the idea of how it is quiet here. We have a distance enough away from those hubs, but like I said, we don't have to put it in our back door. And I can't think of anywhere right here in my district of District 50 that we could just open up a Honda plant, for example. I don't see that, but I have seen a couple of places in St. Clair County that is a very big possibility if that was acquired, because that's what's unique about our county is we have two interstate highways that run straight through the middle of our county, and that is one of the big pipelines of any major big industry is having that access to the interstate highway.
Etowah County has a 5,500 acre mega site right on the county line, just north
Right.
of Steele. Um, if they're successful with, landing, one of those, Honda type super projects, which is their goal, how transformative would that be for, northern St. Clair County, which includes the northern part of District 50?
I mean, it'd be great for the citizens of St. Clair County because you would see a massive influx of people trying to drive up there to go to work. That would be massive. That would be great, and that at the same time, but our county wouldn't be getting any of the revenue from that at all. They would be getting the skilled workers, of course, but they wouldn't be getting any of the revenue from that concept, but at least the state would be getting the revenue if you're bringing in industry to the state. So it being nearby would be great for a lot of people up there, let's just say Springville and stuff like that. But guess what? It also comes back down to what? The infrastructure. Holy smokes, we got to worry about the roads again. So now you've got all this traffic that's coming from St. Clair County going all the way up to Etowah County trying to go to work up there at, let's just say, a Toyota plant or something like that. And there you go. We're always back to the infrastructure and the road conditions right here in St. Clair County.
Well, I think the governor's gas tax a few years ago was supposed to address that, and obviously it seems
You
like
got $30 million going from the gas tax into the Department of Transportation. But of course, it's not the Department of Transportation that takes care of the roads. It's the road builders. So, and if you've noticed where most of those road projects are, I don't know how many road people we have for the county, but as far as most of the road builders, they're all up on, what is that, I-65 or whatever, coming from Huntsville to Montgomery. That's where they're still stuck at.
There
They're
is
still working on that.
there is a significant project in Jefferson County on I-59 running from where 459 junctions with 59 up into Trussville, which, we're hoping will eliminate, when they get that 6 lane, that'll eliminate some of that bottleneck that people
Right.
that work in Birmingham or Hoover but live in Argo or Springville run into. So we are
Yeah,
doing a little bit.
that's another project that they've got going on. Yeah.
Do you think we should
So,
extend when, that project will take it up to, I think, the Deerfoot Parkway? Should we extend that 6 laning all the way from Deerfoot to, let's say, Springville?
I wouldn't see a problem with that, but that would be that would definitely cause a ripple effect for a long period of time with their going rate as it is. But I wouldn't see too much of an issue with that at all. That would actually help out Springville quite a bit.
so what other ways could we help alleviate this infrastructure problem?
Industry revenue. But like I said, it's all connected. I'm all up for ideas. When it comes down to it, it's kind of like an old saying that was out there. If you're in a room full of your friends and you're the smartest one in the room, you need to get new friends. So I'm all ears for any of these ideas that come up. I'm not going to say I have all the answers. I have a lot of good ideas, but it all comes down to having the revenue to be able to pay for it. That's what it comes down to. Every time that you talk about new projects or you talk about ideas of bringing in industry or bringing, it all comes back down to the infrastructure to support it. And until that happens, we're going to be spinning our wheels.
30 years ago, I think, about 30 years ago, my aunt was actually on the council in Margaret, and I think they had 400 people.
Oh,
Today,
they're massive.
Margaret's the number 3 population. Margaret's right bigger than Springville in population.
Yeah,
But
and it's all houses wise. It's
yeah,
not like they've got massive industry or anything there. It is houses. They build houses and communities like crazy, and there's nothing. You have a lot of people, and that's also what is affecting that 411 too, is because you have them turning there at Saney Road. If we had 411 fixed, we wouldn't have that bottleneck right there at Saney Road. Because that 411 backs up for 2 miles during the high peak times between 4:30 and 5:30.
yeah.
But that's what everybody
Um,
wants to do is move into places like Moody, Margaret, Odenville, where they're putting up all these housing development areas, and I've always got in the back of my mind, we need to look into the infrastructure to make sure that we can support it, because Pell City has cut off all housing right now. They're not taking in any more housing because their infrastructure can't support it, supposedly, from what I've heard. So I can't say it would be naive not to believe that we might be running along the same corridor. But what it is we don't have as much industry as, say, Pell City. You take the two, you look at Moody, which is the second largest in the county, and compare it to the first largest. Population wise, it's about a 400 person difference. By industry and businesses, you can see a big difference. So does that make up for the difference? I don't know.
Brian, we've had you almost 55 minutes. I think that's all I've got for you, unless Brandon's got some more questions.
I can ask questions forever, but for the sake of time, is there something that you'd like to say, Brian, that we haven't covered in this last hour?
Uh, yeah, there's a few things. I want people to know that it's about time that whenever we have representatives out there and you've got ideas, I am the person that you can share them with. Because guess what? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a business owner. I don't have something to go to when if I'm elected of when I get out of session, is the only time that you can talk to me, or you won't be able to talk to me at all when I'm out of session. You can only go up to the state house when I'm in session. This job, if I get elected, it's 24/7, meaning you can call me up. Every business card has got my phone number. And if you can't get me when I answer the phone, then you can get me by text messaging me and I'll give you a call back. That's how it's going to be for 24/7. So you don't have to worry about going up to the state house to get in touch with me. My house is going to be right there in Moody, Alabama. So you can always reach out to me and I can meet you for a cup of coffee. But there's also a couple other things. We also need a whole lot of common sense, and we need to have some patriotic people that's just like Terry LaPointe that's running for Congress. She's a great person to have out there. The major, he's running for a lieutenant governor. That's another one that's out
Patrick
there.
Bishop.
Yes, Major Patrick Bishop. Sorry if I didn't mention. I'm sorry. I just said Major, didn't I?
Yeah, we know
But
who he is, but that's for the listeners who may
you know,
not.
you're right, and he's running for lieutenant governor. And that's another one with great common sense. We need these patriotic people to go out there and need y'all to go out there and vote for those individuals. You can check out my website at Bryan Newell. For al.com, and you can see everything that I'm running on, and you can also go visit those other individuals and check out their website and understand who you're voting for. Because when I ran for Congress, I realized that 60% of the voters were unaware when they got up to the ballot box who was up there, and a lot of people get voted in on name recognition only. So we need to make some other changes and elect the right people up there in the Alabama House of Representatives, especially.
Thank you so much
Thanks
for
so
being
much,
on.
Brian. Good luck.
All right, y'all have a good one.
You too, buddy.
Farewell.